Welcome to Talking in Stations for May 25th. I am Matterall here with Caleb.
Hey guys.
And Hateless.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Also off screen, we have Shen with us. How you doing, Shen?
Doing well. Hello, everyone.
All right. So today something new came out. We'll talk about that. And then later on, we'll get into some EVO Online war news. We're coming off of yesterday's show, which was a lot of fun. And I think it was a really good turnout as far as people watching. Thanks to Ron USMC for rating us. Gave us over 100 people. But also the video is doing really well. So that video was basically what the Alliance leaders are saying. And I thought it was very good. So check it out. That's yesterday's video on May 24th.
There's some very nice reveals in that episode.
Yeah. Okay.
I would imagine that would have been a good watch.
Yeah, actually, I if we could talk about it for a second, I'll indulge myself. But I thought it was cool because I revealed one of the ways that I look at news, and that is I always look at the negative space. So when people are telling me things, I can't always trust them, right? Because they tell me what they want me to know. But I just kind of hold on to whatever they say and put that in my pocket, and then I wait. And then when I ask them stuff later and they say something different, then I can compare the negative space of their first reaction with their new reaction. And then that informs me on how they behave. And then I start to figure out, when I start to figure things out in that way, it's almost the negative space of what people tell you in EVE Online is where the reflection of the actual truth is. I think that made sense. At least.
Well, you were trying to dig behind the things being said, right? And I was almost a little bit surprised. Of course, everyone knows that I'm a goon shill and cheerleader and with pom-poms and
you're not. I've seen you get into trouble there.
Yeah. Well, true, but the point is that what I took away from it when watching it is that you were being extremely nice to the Imperium, even in being analytic in a critical sense. And then you ended up slightly giggling at a lot of points in the test town hall. So it's like, am I on the right channel? Who's actually doing some sort of sock puppet Matterall version?
Let me turn on this. We're going to get to this in just a second.
Is this deep fakes?
Well, I thought ProGod's talk was great. It was nice.
It was very good, and you didn't analyze that from a technical side that deeply, but there's a few things where he was saying things that we've discussed a lot in the general media, where I could just tell that you were giggling both at the fact that he doubled down on it and that you kind of had to explain it without going into some deep rabbit hole. It was just kind of fun.
Yeah. It's a good watch. I would go back and watch it. Those are actually, if you don't know about nullsec, those are actually very informative. Because there's some history thrown in there, some context, tells you how what they've done in the past compared to what they're doing now, their message, what they're trying to do. It's kind of it's a neat tour, and I'm glad they're popular because I think it's good content for people who like EVE. In any case. We have more good content today, but it's a little bit different. And we're talking today about the Trailblazers, the Trailblazers event that actually started up. Here's the picture of it. And this is interesting. There are bridges being built across these empires. You can see there's 4 empires there, one color for each empire. And one example of a bridge being built more or less by a mining ship. So the object of this event is to mine and help these bridges get the resources they need to be created and avoid getting destroyed in the process by NPCs. And you can join in as a miner, or you can join in as a security force to protect miners. And there's, I think, 2 areas, one where they're mining and another one where they're depositing, something like that.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Fozzie about this. Is a very technical question. Did the Amar actually run out of barges or something?
You mean the trading center in Amar?
The fact that there's barges for the 3 other empires on this artwork, right?
Oh, and this is funny. We'll get into it later, but you see that middle ship
Well,
there? The porpoise?
it's a porpoise and 3 mining ships, so it's a little mining fleet shown, and then they kind of have the 4 races in the background.
Well, here's
kind of how I view it.
Here's the secret behind it.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the secret behind the picture. That's a skiff, I believe.
Yeah, that's
Or the procurer.
no, that's a procure. That's
Yeah,
the small one with a lot of
You can see the
tank.
color.
Okay, so that's the tankiest one.
Yeah, that's the tankiest
How
one.
long has it been since I mined? I was just in a
I don't mind, so I don't know well.
Okay, the point is, let me not embarrass myself any further and just say these are 3 classes of mining barges. So they're 3 different types of ships. They don't have a 4th mining barge, so they had to throw in a porpoise. The problem is the porpoise doesn't qualify to participate in this event. So that was a screw up.
Nice.
Yeah, they'll fix that. Yeah, the skiff is the T2, and I think of it in T2. Thank you, Nick. You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay.
It's just because you're being an elitist. That's like saying, "Oh, that's a Hulk." No, it's not a Hulk.
You T1 scrub lords. I'm just kidding.
What's a T1?
What's T1?
Hashtag no pause.
Anyway, so that's funny. Don't take a porpoise to this event. We had a friend that did, and he couldn't get in. Now, he couldn't get in, I think, for other reasons. There have been a few hiccups.
Because it's only one. They ramp up in different scales, right? Maybe Haters can explain this, but some of the sites actually don't allow it. So it's only the upper ones that even allow barges, right?
I'm not entirely sure. I didn't actually do the event today. Normally I do the combat events, and I didn't do this one. This one does have its draw for certain players, and it's mostly a mining event. It looks like there's some combat side to it that I haven't really gotten into.
Well, this is Resource Wars.
Do you want me to just jump into what the significance of this event is, or do you want to kind of lead into that?
You mean the bridge building?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's actually start there. What's the goal of this event? Then we'll talk about the event itself and how you can participate. Why don't we do it that way?
The goal of the event is that the 4 empires are trying to build a new gate connecting one of their systems to another system that's in a bordering region. Caldari State is trying to build a gate from Hakoda to which is in the Forge, to Abazon, to which is Genesis Amar space in Losec, and the Amar Empire is trying to build a gate from Tashmerkan region in Amar from the system Seminar to FZ-TAC ICZ, which is Nullsec Stain Sancha space, is where they're trying to build their gate. And we have the Galente Federation out of Placid, and the system Kennick trying to build a gate to Egg-Harian, which is in High-Sec Solitude. I believe Solitude's a High-Sec island at the moment, which makes that interesting. Anyways, it's low-sec to high-sec, so it still remains a high-sec island. And then the Mimitar Republic is trying to build a gate from Metropolis in the system Agiris to high-sec Genesis, which is Concord-owned area, Pakhishi, Pakhsi. This information can be found in the large post that CCP Fozzie made about the event. But that's the links that are trying to be made, and I believe they're regional gates because they go from one region to the next.
Yeah, so they're bigger gates than usual. Regional gates are bigger.
Yeah, it'll link to regions. I haven't looked at it on the map, but I know that these bridges will change the layout of the game a little bit. And it will make a low-sec route from the Hakoda, from the Forge to Amar space. Will make a low-sec bridge connection from Jita to Amar, which is a big deal.
Yeah. I was saying that in a very deliberate way. The regional gates are actually physically in the game much bigger than your inter-regional
yes.
So
yeah,
I think
sometimes
today,
like,
today when we had Fozzie around in TAS for a little bit of a Q&A, he mentioned something about the fact that this whole thing with Concord space and Concord in general is tied into I think the origin sites of these events is kind of interesting because it smells a little bit like there might be some new starter area kind of thinking in the near future.
You're deep in theory. Let's go back to actual. We'll get to that theory stuff, but let's talk about what's actually in front of us. So these bridges that you just described are regional gates. So they're going to connect regions to other regions. They will be built even if nobody participates in this event.
Yeah, sadly so. But yes, they are all going to be finished in what he said is about a month or so out. The event is a week, and they will all be finished regardless. But this is all tied into the reward stuff and the new LP store, and yeah, it looks like a fairly decent one, and it's all about reutilizing some of the older events and older PvE content, right? So things like the resource wars.
Right. Hold on a second while I take this logo off my face so I can be seen. Sorry about that. Didn't notice. Here I am. Okay. So yes, you have 1 week in order to participate. If you participate, there is good money in it to be made, and you get loyalty points, LP, that you can use in a store, and there's new costumes that you can buy. So far, that's the only thing we've seen that you can buy. There might be other things.
And new skins for ships as well.
Thanks, Shen.
And you also get on a monument of sorts, depending on how much you have participated.
If you are a top contributor, your name will be mentioned on the monument, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, little permanent.
And I believe that the monument's in the destination system, if I remember correctly. I can't remember which way it is, if it's in the origin or destination system.
Nice.
So it's top 10 for each gate, basically. That's newly constructed. That your name, like if you're the top 10 contributor to that gate, your name will be on it.
Right. So this event, what it is, basically, is they had the CCP wanted to create new bridges new connections between regions. So they mixed that desire with probably a little bit of lore and a little bit of resource wars. So what this event is basically a revamped resource war. And Fozzie was talking on Talking in Stations, as Caleb mentioned earlier, and he said that, yeah, basically his group does events, and their mission is to create gameplay that's unique. How did he say it? Actually, I have it right here. In this, he says he's part of a small team that is tasked with running lots of short-term events to help provide some variety and keep things fresh. And we are always looking for ways to do it quickly and cheaply so that we can do more stuff with our finite resources. Repurposing and polishing up some older content is one of those ways. And that is the reason they started using resource wars in a revamped way for this event.
Well, and this is where I think it's important to point out that it's talking about a developer like Fozzie, who is considered a veteran and quite the heavy hitter in the development team. I suspect many EVE players have been wondering what he's been doing lately, because he's been a little bit silent. I think you can say that he's almost been silent compared to prior, at least for the past almost 2 years, right? But it looks like this is exactly where he needs to be, because again, the big plans, right? The big storylines and the big changes with call it minimum effort or reutilizing things and fixing some of the old stuff is exactly where you need someone like Fozzie. And well, he did prove himself on the CCP TV stream on their anniversary, right, where he basically showed that he is the most knowledgeable or top knowledgeable player in the game, right? So I'm just saying that if you want someone to do things that are tied into lore, that brings in the visions of someone like Delegate Zero and all that big change stuff, like a faction war, Cold War becoming a hot war, if you want a complete revamp of old content and all that stuff, this is exactly the kind of team that you need, right? And I think we are expecting to see more of this, and I think it will ramp up considerably.
Right. So resource wars, for those who don't know, were a feature that came in a while ago. I want to say 2-3 years ago, and it just wasn't something that players responded to. It was basically mining missions.
Yeah, the idea was kind of good, but it just fell flat. I don't know exactly why people didn't want to do them. If it was the risk reward, the value, the engagement, people just didn't like them that much. So they were not launched in a good place. But the idea of having some sort of mining oriented and resource gathering PVE like that, especially if it's potentially meaningful, I think that was a really good idea. It just didn't really work back then. But now they reuse some of these things in this feature, and I think they did it in another one in the past as well, right?
Sorry, I was distracted by a phone call. But I'm going to say right, because usually you are.
Yeah, I just remember when Resource Wars came out, I kind of looked at it and it wasn't exactly appealing, so I wasn't too incentivized to go play with it.
I think the unappealing part of it was it just wasn't rewarded well for the time that you spent doing it. It was supposed to be something for miners to do, and then their friends who wanted to PvP and protect them. What was your reason for not doing it? Well, you're not a miner,
at the time when it came out, I was really obsessed with how much skin power I can make doing whatever I was doing, and I was all about like, if I'm going to play the game, I'm going to make this much ISK when I play, and if it's making less, then why should I play and do the other thing?
Right. It just didn't make enough money doing it, right?
Yeah, that's what it boiled down to me for myself.
And I think that
maybe the time scale was off, right? People either need when it comes to things like miners or that type of resource gathering, it's either extremely convenience based, like can I do it right now and be done in like 5-10 minutes, or it's like can I do this for 2 hours semi AFK.
Or can I actually work at this and do better in like an hour or two and like actually like put the effort in and get more reward for the effort that I put in, is something that you kind of had to go run if I recall correctly. Like I said, I didn't really participate in Resource Wars.
Yeah. And so they basically thought like nobody's really playing this feature. So they pulled the feature. They took it out of the game. And they said it'll come back in some way after we work with it. And that was I think it was at least a year ago, maybe 2. And here it is again. And so what Fozzie was telling you earlier was that, yeah, we're gonna try to do a lot of events to keep everything fresh, and we'll do it as cheap as possible so we can do a lot of stuff. And using a feature that was already created is a huge bonus. So they're putting Resource War back into the game, but they're giving it better rewards and a limited time. You have 1 week to use it to play this gameplay and to get involved with it. And then you get some goods out of it. Here's the thing I'm not sure about. How do you get involved with this Trailblazers? Do you know where you go?
So my understanding is you go to these systems where the gates are being built or the regions in which they're being built, and you can participate by finding the anomalies that spawn up. That's my understanding of it. But like I said, I haven't actually gone out played with it. It'll either come up in your probe scanner or on the overview, and then you can take your mining ship there. There's kind of a nifty thing. All players can participate in this as you have access to prospects and the other tier 2 one, even as an alpha. They give you a nifty thing on this. Hold on, let me read specifically what it is. But they're giving out a mining blitz expedition frigate temporary expert system for the duration of the event. So if you activate this, you get what is roughly equal to 70 days of training mining skills to fly expedition frigates, and it's like maxed out expedition frigate skills. So anybody can participate in this. So it's something that I would recommend more people go try if they want to try out mining. This is a good opportunity to get into mining.
Yeah, and also for those expedition frigates, for example, the Prospect is very good at gas harvesting. So even if you don't want to do this event, you can still go into wormholes and use those expedition packs to try out something that you haven't done before, right? Use the Prospect to do some gas harvesting, or endurance to do some like ice mining, right? If you're a miner, you want to try those things, this is a good time for it.
Okay, so some of the things, awesome. So go to the systems where the bridges are being built. And the rewards is something that we were just talking about. There's LP loyalty points that you can get. I was just looking at a list here of some of the skins and clothing and stuff you can get. You guys can check that out on your own. Now let's talk about some of the problems with the launch, because it didn't launch without a few hiccups. And I'm sure all those hiccups will be fixed up in the next 48 hours. One of them was just being able to get into the sites because people were getting locked out, right?
Yeah, there was a limitation thing in how many people could go in at once. And it seems like the door was semi-broken and people couldn't understand why they couldn't get in. And there was not, it didn't behave like a nice and orderly queue, because some people actually was about to go in and was stuck not being able to, and then suddenly people in front of them just went zip and went straight into the site. So something was a little bit off, and Fuzzy tweeted about it, and they're looking at figuring out what could be done better to make it work.
Yeah, they were actually already testing a fix this morning, about 5-7 hours ago. So they were working on it, and I'm sure that'll get fixed. Another thing, though, that kind of ruffled some feathers was this new gameplay policy, which I think CCP Dopamine put out, which was basically, it says this: players may not take actions that are intended to deny other players the ability to complete the Empire mining expedition sites unless those actions involve direct PvP combat. So what this essentially boils down to is, don't use the mechanics to screw other players out of gameplay. And this is something that Fozzie addressed, saying, look, that's basically what we say to all kinds of people. You can't use the server to just, to mess up a fight that's going on. You can't use the game to block other people from playing. And so they're saying, if you're going to compete with somebody else, like fill up, I think they gave some examples right here, actually. Like, for example, entering a site to kill another player, bubbling the outside of the site in nullsec to catch players entering, camping any location where there is reasonable expectation of PvP is all examples of allowed activities. So you could do that kind of stuff. That's PvP. However, I think here, entering the sites and then flying far away from the entry point to prevent others from being able to enter, because remember, there's a max capacity, systematically starting all the timers in a system without engaging the content, and shooting the friendly orcas to prevent players from turning in the ore are all examples of disallowed activities. So you can see the difference. If you're going to PvP, that's fine. If you're going to do hijinks and try to prevent people from playing, that is not allowed. And what's funny
This is interesting.
People got really mad at that. But go ahead.
This is interesting. This is the first time that I've seen CCP actually say, hey, we intend for gameplay to go in this way. And the sandbox allows for these things, like because of the mechanics of the game and how the game works allows for these things, but we don't want to see you doing these things because it disrupts the fun of other people. It's the first time we've seen it.
It is, but I think it's different than you described it. The game doesn't allow for those things. You can't use the game. You can't use the mechanics of the game.
I can load 7 characters and flood a site and make it so it can't be completed. Like that's what it's disallowing. That the game mechanics allow that.
I think they can report you for that, can't they?
They can, yes, and they definitely should and would according to these rules.
But they're not new. They're just detailed versions of denial of other players' usage of the system in a meaningful way. So it's been not very well policed in the past, but I'm pretty sure this is a semi-old rule when it comes to what you are allowed to do when it comes to disruption of other players.
Yeah, like I said, to me this is precedent. This is the first time that we've seen CCP openly say something this much in like, you cannot disrupt this. You need to make it function how we intend it to function so it can be fun for everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is a departure. Because normally what they will do is let it go without that kind of announcement, and then somebody will do something that breaks the EULA, basically.
The 18-way FFA arena, like 100%. I don't know if you guys played the 18-way FFA. I had so much fun in the first one that I did. I got an actual 18-way where there were 18 pilots that were not colluding with each other, and it was a blast.
Wait,
it was
18
absolutely
FFA.
fun.
That is free for all.
18-way, yeah, free for all.
So everybody's fighting everybody, and there's 18 people fighting. Okay.
Yeah, in the Proving Grounds, they did that for the 18th Capsuleer event. And what ended up happening is, say, a bunch of test pilots would queue in, and they would all kill everybody else but the test pilots. And then now there's 7 test pilots that own the room, and then they'd fight amongst each other. And all of the top players that won the FFA event, of the top of them, I'm guessing at least 7 of the top 10 were working together and had that kind of initial edge of, we cleared most of the room and then we did our own little FFA. They colluded with each other. And what a lot of players were doing, what a lot of groups were doing, even groups of like 10 or 15 people were doing, they were all queuing at the same time and just going in at the same time. Yep, there's 5 of us. We're all here. We're a team. We even fit remote reps to our ship so that we can rep
help
each other up.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like 5 or 6 pilots is all it took to dominate the FFA. And it kind of shot the fun in the foot. It would have been a lot more fun had people actually gotten to do an actual FFA, and the rewards for that event were tailored in a way that you could go in and lose your cruiser and still come out making profit after insurance and all that. You actually ended up making IS. It ended up being an IS faucet. But you had to go participate in it to earn the ISK. And with the balance like that, it made it to be a lot of fun. Even if you ended up spending like 5 or 6 million ISK per go at it, you weren't losing 20-30 million ISK per go at it like you were in previous events. But how they balance these is a big deal. But they didn't have a rule like this in place. There was a soft rule or a precedent set before in previous FFA where you weren't supposed to collude, but it wasn't so blatant and or not blatant, but so like, this is what we want. We're going to make a bold statement here in bold letters and say, hey, you know what? We do not want you to ruin this event for other players.
Yeah, they're out front on this one.
Yeah. And this
there's a difference between the two types you're talking about, right? You're talking about more meta stuff and emergent gameplay and what is outside of the client functionality. This is something that CCP has historically been a fan of, because I do think that it actually creates content, even if it is sometimes horrible. But what they're talking about here is more, if you deliberately disrupt the
colluding
mechanics.
in an FFA is the exact same thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's not. And repeating it is not making it so. If you are deliberately abusing the way that the in-client mechanics work to create a situation where you are blocking access to the content, is not the same as emergent gameplay.
Literally just describe colluding and denying people
That's
the
not
ability
colluding.
to participate.
It's not colluding.
Okay.
Oh, we're on to a great topic here. But what is meta, and what is using the mechanics of the game?
Okay, give an example. Let's say that when we're going to get all these keys, right? And someone figures out that you can get the keys fairly easily, and then instead of actually going and opening the banks, you can delete or destroy the keys, and they won't respawn for X amount of days. You're doing a denial of service and access to the actual feature. You can say that's very high level gameplay, but it's not collusion. It is abusing the design of the game in a new and quote unquote emergent way, but
So
it's not intended.
It's like the high reward drops, and I'm just going to shoot the can so nobody can have it.
Pretty much,
That's,
yeah.
that's what you're saying. Denial of access to content.
Yes.
And you're saying that a bunch of players queuing up into a free for all and denying the mass of players the ability to participate in free for alls because it's suddenly a team versus a free for all, whereas a team will always win. That's not denial.
I don't care of team. You're trying to strawman the argument. The point is, if you are deliberately
no.
doing
Don't tell him
something,
don't say what he's doing.
but that is what it is. He's trying to get it back to the whole collusion thing, and it's not. If I am doing the same as if I'm doing the same, if I know there's X amount of entries in an event, and I go back and forth or use alts to actually make it impossible to finish that content and for it not to clear the system, then I have basically broken CCP's design. That's not me colluding or creating emergent gameplay.
Right. Here's where I think the disconnect is, and it's so interesting because you're both very certain about it, and I agree with both of you. But when you think of it in terms of sandbox, anything goes player behavior wise. You just can't break the sandbox to achieve a goal, and that's what they're saying here. What you're talking about is a mini game inside of the sandbox, and it has its own rules that should protect it. But because it's in the sandbox, you can meta game the FFA, the free for all. And that's why it's legal, and that's why it's okay. Because it's in the sandbox.
It was technically not legal to do so, and it just wasn't enforced.
But why wouldn't they enforce something illegal? I would just suspect that's an inconsistency they don't want on their record.
They didn't want to set that precedent, because if you start controlling how people can enter into Abyss or into the Proving Grounds in that way, it would set a precedent. This sets a precedent. That's why this is important. This sets that precedent. Well, and I don't think that they wanted to set the precedent with the 18-way FFA.
I think
wasn't a good time to do it.
The clarification statement that came out from Fozzie today was, and he did it on TIS Eve channel because he was talking to people. But he's basically saying this is equivalent to you can't stuff a server full of people to break the server to win your timer. That is not allowed. And this is equivalent to that. You can't break the game or render it useless in order to win or to deprive people of a victory condition or whatever. Going into almost an enclosed game, however you decide to win that game.
Arguably the same thing, but
right, because you're seeing the boundaries of the game as the FFA moment, the tournament, but it's embedded into a sandbox that allows meta gameplay, and so you can leverage wins that way. That's why people can get away with spying on other people's corporations. That's even worse because that's outside of the game client. But that's the problem.
There's just a difference in what you're actually attacking, right? If you are abusing your knowledge of the hardware, so you're breaking the servers, that's not allowed, right? If you are breaking the mechanics by using some sort of found exploit like infinite guns or whatever, there's been many historical examples of this. If you're breaking the way that the game design is made, that's not allowed. But if you have figured out how to do, say, game fixing in the AT, that's fundamentally not CCP's problem.
How about using a web to move a freighter along a lot faster than it should? Is that breaking?
Yeah, that's my favorite, because that's one of those that's what was then deemed allowed or
how about
creative.
Using a jet can to
mine?
I
still hate it, and I think it should be removed. It's wrong.
Using a jet can to mine, 27,000 M3 of ore.
But then you have to have something come back and pick it up.
But it was not seen as intended gameplay. It was this accident, but it's creative and it's it's neat. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a gray area.
The point I'm trying to make with this is the first time I've seen CCP actually say, hey, you can't do this.
I'll tell you why this is different, because CCP is creating anti-sandbox gameplay that requires additional rules. And instead of trying to fix things after they've become a problem, they're coming out, getting in front of this thing so that they can deal with complaints before they come in. And that's the first. But really what they're doing is the proving grounds are not really sandboxy, right?
They're pretty arcadey. Like
yeah, they're very
100%.
they're very much
You
arcade
jump in,
game.
you have 15 minutes of fun. Like they're super
They're
arcade.
instanced gameplay for casual players to get involved in content. And that's the problem with the development of some of the stuff CCP has done that isn't sandbox oriented, I guess. I think it deserves to be there, but it is a conflict.
It's also about who it's aimed at, right? It's aimed at something that's supposed to also be a little bit new bro friendly. So I think this is one of those examples where they don't want us to game it to death and destroy it, right? Because it's maybe not a new system stuff, but it's supposed to be new bro friendly. So this is back to the things that might be allowed in high and end level gameplay and shenanigans should not necessarily be allowed in the noob areas, right?
Right. Well, again, the eternalness of a sandbox, a one shard sandbox, is that the world exists and the players perform in it, as long as you don't violate the contract between you and God, and CCP being the God, right? As long as you don't look behind the curtain, or behind the backdrop that shows a forest. As long as you don't reveal that it's not a tree, it's actually a backdrop. Like that's kind of the construct that we should be.
If they have an event and there's a way to just completely break it, should it be broken or should it not be broken?
Well, if it's just, should we have rules about it? I don't know. But CCP don't necessarily have the ability to react fast enough to fix something. So let's say there was an event that suddenly could be completely insta-blitzed, right? With the right setup. And you could massively farm that, right? That would completely mess up and break the economy in the things that were involved in that event. I already think that the last one with the payouts was completely broken. It exploded way above what is healthy for the game.
Which one, the winter event or the Grist's egg hunt, or
the one with all the overseer thingies that completely spiked crazy on the MER.
Well, that was the Christmas. That was the Winter Nexus, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Winter Nexus was incredibly popular. It was also a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
Winter Nexus was a blast. I'd had a huge heyday playing that.
Yeah, you were awesome. Okay, so now that we worked that out, and you're both right, and the precedence is interesting.
I mean, just one thing, like
tiebreaker. Go ahead, Shen.
A smart bombing rally point in NoSec with a smart bomb Macario. Do you guys think that's like a broken gameplay or not? Because rally points are meant for new bros to be rallying a T1 cruiser, but people are farming for escalations.
Well, we can go through all the historical things and all the game design and discuss whether or not it's actually working as intended, whether you're talking gun mining or gun compression in the past. It's like,
you're right.
it's a workaround, but it was
insurance
silly,
fraud.
Right? You could get more minerals out of just normal loot than you could out of mining. It's just
even self-destructing to travel is, if you think about it.
I do want to say that there are a lot of things in EVE Online that weren't necessarily intended by the developers, but as creative people have learned how the mechanics work in the game, they've learned some really interesting things that you could do. One really good example is pipe bombing back in when that first started becoming a thing. Rooks and Kings really delivered on that one. If you haven't watched that video, you really should.
They
there are mechanics
it.
in this game.
They popularized it, but I think it was created before them. Yeah.
But creative gameplay is and putting the mechanics to the edge of what they can do and testing like what is actually possible in a game and what the engine can actually handle and do is part of gaming as a whole. To limit player creativity in that way would be bad, but I do think that in this way, saying, "Hey, you know what? Let's not ruin it for people trying to participate in the event," is okay, but it is a slippery slope. If we extend this too far, it could be a problem.
I just thought, is this protecting newer players? Is that what's going on here?
I would say that this is protecting not necessarily just newer players, but players that want to participate in the event and have fun with it. Is where I see the protection. It's not specifically aimed at newer players, but it's aimed at players that want to participate in the event.
What an interesting, it's an interesting situation. I'm glad we stumbled upon it. And I think it is the difference between it's arcade gameplay inside of a sandbox and how you protect the rules of the arcade game inside of a sandbox, which doesn't want rules. Interesting. All right.
I think that there's a flip side to that. Sorry, just to take it one step further. In other games, when you're talking about these arcadey found mechanics and all of that, which is really cool, but in a game that's supposed to be a big sandbox, if you allow these things too much leeway, even though you can say, well, it's something the players figured out, but it's kind of breaking the game, whether it's something as I mentioned with the gun compression, that's not healthy because the game is supposed to be designed around a certain bulkness of stuff when it comes to logistics. If you've figured out a small loophole that breaks that, it is CCP's responsibility to actually plug that because it is not working as intended. You can put in something else and then start talking about balancing something, which is exactly what they did with compression, right? And it's the same with gun mining. Their solution was horrible because they basically just removed the minerals from them, right? But it is their responsibility to fix something that is fundamentally broken, even if it was found mechanics.
I would 100% agree with you on that. There are situations where something is found at the edge of possibility, and then that becomes not good for gameplay. One example in history in EVE Online is there was I'm not sure if this is what you're referring to as gun compression, but back in, I want to say 2008, it is before my time, they found that in a specific wormhole type, there was a gun penalty that ended up making your
guns. It's a different thing. Gun compression is just taking minerals and building 420 millimeters guns because it's a lot easier to move than the raw materials. So, and that was then exchanged for compressed.
Now we have compressed ore. Okay. Anyways. But what happened was people would build their ships in such a way that now their blasters have end of unlimited range. So now you have blaster DPS at sniper ranges. And then while you're in this wormhole, you're basically unkillable because you have the home field advantage. You're set up with blasters with the highest DPS. You can't really defend against that, so you automatically win. That was a game-breaking mechanic that was found by testing the limits of minimizing your range because you go so far, it looped back over to a positive value. That was game breaking, and things like that should definitely be patched and fixed. And when we find things that do actually break the game, I would agree 100% that those things do need to be fixed and made in a way that they do not break the game.
The extreme case you're talking about is basically doing something very similar to what people do with webifiers to speed up warping, right?
I mean, that's an interesting one. That's really
I know, but it's still not working as intended. But they did the same with the infinite guns. They took advantage of the way that CCP has coded the math. So when they then got to a certain level, it became a 0, and in EVE, 0 and infinite is the same. So it's not just that they could. It's not just that they could get better range. They had infinite range, and not only infinite. Because it was infinite, they always hit at best.
As if it was optimal.
Yeah, they should have asked the Mayans. They should have asked the Mayans about how to use 0 correctly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so let's. We got to wrap up. Actually, we have to move to war news in a second. But this is a good topic for us to hit some other day. But do we want to do a quick little recap for guys that just joined us? Ashtarothi, thanks, by the way, for that raid. Super generous of you to bring people over. We were looking at just a second ago. It seems like a second ago, but it was really a while ago. Stargate Trailblazers, a new event. It's basically Resource Wars, which was a feature that was put into EVE Online and then pulled, and now it's used and will be used for events where you mine to help the empires build stuff. And in doing so, you will get rich and you will get loyalty points that allow you to buy some new things. But it's dangerous. You could get destroyed by NPC characters, so you need some friends to help protect you. And if you've got nothing to do and you want to help protect some miners, head on to these systems where the gates are being built. I believe there's 4 or 5 different locations. There's 4 locations probably, right? Yeah.
Yes, you can go to the Forge, specifically in Haikota. You can go to the Amar Empire in Losek, Tashmerkan region near Amar. In the Galente Federation, you can go to Placid, and you might also be able to go to Solitude to participate. I'm not sure if you can participate on both ends of the gate. And then in Mimitar Republic, you can go head out to Metropolis near Heck in order to participate in these events. Specific locations are listed on the Trailblazers event forum post that CCP Fozzie made. And you can head out to those locations to go participate in both combat ships and mining ships. And they do need protection, which might draw me over there.
The loyalty points, they're not for each empire, are they? Who are the loyalty points for?
I'm not really sure on that.
Shen, do you know?
I think it's for the corresponding
corporations.
That's responsible for building the gate.
Got it.
And also note all those skins and those clothings for your character and for the ships, they're tradable. So you can buy those skins and those jackets if you want on the market instead of doing the event and getting those things by yourself, basically.
That means you can make a lot of those skins and stuff and sell them for ISK, by the way. That's a important bit.
Yeah, actually, I think we have a little bit of video here. Let me turn off that sound there. Okay. And this one of our guys? Yeah, this is one of our guys actually doing the event. I probably should have had this playing. But here it is. This is what it looks like. And what I'll do is just give you that link so you guys can go check it out if you are curious.
So I do want to add that they have given all players access to the Venture, Prospect, and Endurance for the duration of the event in the form of a Mining Blitz Expedition Frigate Expert System, which gives you the training required in order to fly those, and then also allows alphas to use those tier 2 ships, which they normally would not be allowed to use.
Yeah. That is
also, we can see in the video that they're all diamond rats, which means that they're very deadly. So be careful. Diamond rats.
Yeah, I might have to go play with these guys.
Yeah, diamond rats are seen.
Now you woke up hateless. Like now it looks nice.
Yeah, there's something to shoot. Let me go look at this a little bit.
I know those guys. That's something though. Hateless said something that was really interesting, and that is if you don't have the skills to participate, worry not. You can get those in an expertise pack. They're temporary skills that allow you to participate in things like this. And now we can see those expertise packs in action, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we've seen them a couple times before. During the Grista event, we got interceptors for free.
Right, to race around.
Yeah. Every now and then we end up with a free thing during an event, and I think that's really neat. There is a huge potential for CCP to use these expert systems, and I like seeing them being used as it's a pretty cool mechanism.
Yeah. Ashrathi asking, are these sites paying ISK? Ash, I think you would know. You tell us. Or maybe he's prompting us to answer a question.
I think they pay ISK and LP. I'm not sure.
I think it's both. Yeah, that's what I've heard. These sites look really good, though. I think since CCP upgraded their, what's it called? What's the Microsoft thing that, I forget. Visual VB, or I forget what it is. But anyway, they're able to create some really beautiful scenarios now. if I remember old Eve, it was like this was a gas cloud when you looked at it, but if you flew, it looked like a fish. You could see the whole cloud like this, so you could see the two gas clouds like this if you flew in the wrong direction because they were just flat, opaque gas paintings or whatever. But now it's totally different. Technology's much better, and it just looks like a state-of-the-art game, which is fantastic.
Also, so completing this event will give you event points. Those things, there's no like special skins for event points as what we usually have seen so far this year. But those things can be traded. So if you get enough event points, you will get those boosters. So those boosters, there are two types of boosters. One increase your mining laser optimum range, and one is increase the yield of the mining laser, strip miners or the mining lasers. And those can also be obtained through locking rewards.
Right. Let's have a look at this. I think this is rewards here. Yeah, we had these up already. Okay. Right. So that's the event. Get involved. It is more lucrative than Resource Wars were. The building of these gates is not dependent on player participation, so you have no agency, there's that word, to affect the outcome. Those gates will be available. But what you can do is get some money. Go ahead.
Participating in this event and being a top contributor does get your name on a monument associated with these gates, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, thank you. Great point.
Change vanity for agency any day.
All right, so that is the Trailblazers Gate Construction event of 2021. A couple more things that we have today. One is CSM interviews. Of course, Ashtarothi is doing his, so watch Ashtarothi's channel. Feel free to post that in chat. He's doing extended length interviews with the candidates, but CCP also had interviews today, and it was kind of like a lightning round, wasn't it? One after another.
A little bit. I think a fun little anecdote thing to put in here is to those that might not have noticed, but TIS is actually not doing CSM coverage this year. But at least we can fake defend ourselves with the fact that we lost one of the important pieces of our staff, who is actually now doing it under the CCP banner. So yeah. The reason we're not doing it is because the guy that was supposed to help do it is actually no longer with us.
We outsourced him to both CCP and Ashtarothi.
I do want to say, before I came on the talking stations show today, I was watching Ashtarothi's interview of Ron, and Ashtarothi was asking some really good questions. Like I was really impressed.
Check that out.
Big shout out to Ashtarothi for asking the real questions. Like that, huge respect on that. That you were doing a really good job interviewing Ron.
He did a really good job on the other two that I saw as well. I was watching the one with Spot and the one with Rich Richmond. I also think he did a bang-up job there, except, of course, for the fact that people keep thinking that Spot is some sort of mega industrialist, but I think that's not really Ash's fault. That's CCP's fault.
I think his character name is after an ore, so that might be something to do with it.
Oh, yeah. The dude is named after ore. He must be a miner and an industrialist.
All right. So the other piece of news that we have is, CCP was doing their interviews. We don't have that queued up, but let's go back to our friendly faces. But Shen, you were saying there was a lot of heavy fighting today in 3 TAC D, right?
Yep. So right after downtime, within an hour, Pappy formed up in ETAC V, basically trying to get into the 3 TAC D gate. And after we got in, so on the gate, Imperium pulled up bubbles with their interdictors. And around those bubbles, they did 2 bombing runs. But this time we were very successful at catching their bombers. We prepared a lot of interdictors from our side to bubble up those bombers, and we switched from heavy missile Cerberus to rapid light, which is very, very effective against small ships like destroyers and frigates.
Wow.
Yeah, and
So we talked yesterday about how Blarpies, which are blaster harpies, which are small ships, were taking out fighters for the Imperium, and they were going to use flycatchers as well as kind of an additional thing. What did they use to catch the bombers this time that were blowing them up?
They catch them with interdictors, bubbles, and they kill them with rapid light Cerberus, which is really, really effective. Like,
yeah.
Didn't they change the fighter doctrine to try and avoid that?
I mean, fighters themselves, you can't change that much, right? A fighter is a fighter. There's no modules that you can put on the fighter.
No, the fighter type. Didn't they change to another type to try and avoid this exact problem? I remember
the strategic. Yeah, it was. I don't know enough yet to figure out what they're trying to do there. If it's important, if it's pivotal, if it's interesting, even building T2 fighters is a pain. You don't want to do it. T1 fighters, not such a big deal. Don't know if there's a difference between T1, T2 in a war zone. There's a lot of questions that are still open about that.
I know that T2 fighter is about 10, or what is it about? It's 4 or 5 times the cost of a tier 1. That is as of a year ago before the rebalance. I'm not sure what they currently are right now, but they are significantly more expensive. A tier 2 fighter, as I recall, they may have changed, are similar costs to an actual cruiser.
Oh,
it depends on
an individual fighter.
It depends on what kind of fighter.
They do vary a bit.
Yeah, a T2 heavy fighter is about 13 mil, around that range. A T2 light fighter is about 10 to 15 ish, I think, right now.
Yeah, well, a whole flight of them is like
lot. So you can fit 9 in a 9.
You can fit
light fighters
9 light fighters in a tube, and you can fit 5 heavy fighters in a heavy tube.
Yeah.
And even though it's not necessarily our place to go into the details of the mechanics, even though Shen gave us a little bit of it, but it's worth mentioning because of the poo-poo fighting that is currently going on between the Imperium and Pappy when it comes to tinkering and theory crafting, right? Because basically Pickles threw down the gauntlet in a very massive way in his recent town hall.
Do you want to elaborate on how he threw it down? Like what part of it?
Well, he basically said that Imperium. Well, I don't know why they keep doing this. They say that Imperium have no FCs worth any
block
talent.
FCs.
Well, block FCs, but and they do the same. Pickles just did the same with theory crafting, basically saying that their theory crafters are amateurs. And it's like, I don't know if it's a good idea to keep saying this because it's so provably false that it just irritates your opponent, and of course that's got a bit of a psyching value. But if they're proven wrong in actual on the field events, then it just comes back to haunt you like a karma boomerang, and then Pickles will have to sit there and do apologies again.
It's Pro God Legend, not Pickles. I don't know why you keep calling him that.
I insist on calling him Pickles.
Whatever. Your choice. But I don't completely disagree with him. I think if you look at their roster of FCs, block level is something different than an FC. Even if you're a big FC, it's different. Block level is high level. And theory crafting also, as I explained yesterday, is like wizardry. And that's hard to know who the theory crafters are because they're usually working behind the scenes. But he did say V, I think, was a theory crafter. I think Pando is a very good theory crafter, and he's part of the Imperium, so should give him credit. But anyway, enough about Pro God Legend and who he throws shade at. What's happening in 3 TAC D is, if you didn't hear a few days ago, there was a couple of fleets that were just bombed into oblivion that belonged to Pappy. Big losses, right? About 250 billion. So the bombers were doing a great job for the Imperium. And as Shen was saying today, that was reversed. They I don't think took out many Pappy, but were destroyed in the process. And so it is back and forth and back and forth. I don't think the bombing runs of earlier this week that were highly celebrated by the Imperium were a big deal. It hurt, but it wasn't a big deal. And I don't think what we've seen today is necessarily a big deal. We haven't seen pivotal things happen yet. Anything else?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the battle report in Artag 8?
Yeah. What? Can you give me a link? I think it's the because nothing died. It's hard to find it on Z Killboard, but if there's any chance you have a link, I'll take it. If not, I think I can dig it up. I just. But why don't you?
Just in the channel.
Thank you.
In the channel. Yeah. So it was. So it happened around 1 o'clock. 1 a.m. in the 1 a.m. in the morning for Beijing time, which means that basically everyone was about to go to bed, and we heard that one person got his Titan fleet warped near a Thera hole. So that person was he was basically undocking his Titan to get some sunshine, right, and like to show off. Basically, that's what all super pilot does. Right? So,
to get some sunshine in space. Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, big thing is he was in the standing fleet, but we later on found out it was so our standing fleet is open to +5 standings.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a PH spy from somewhere invited a newt.
So a spy is in Pandemic Horde. Pandemic Horde is +5 to your group. Therefore, you have a spy.
Before that, yeah. Right now, they're not.
Now it's changed. Okay. So a guy with +5 standing who is a spy in Pandemic Horde is sitting in your standing fleet.
In not only in the fleet, but in a leadership position. Either
he moved himself. He moved himself to there. So that he was trying to fleet warp. So a big lesson there, right? Always, if you're in a capital ship, examine yourself from fleet warp. The first thing that you're supposed to do before undocking.
Right.
So he got fleet warp to near the Thera hole, and there was snuffed out with a Legion fleet and what's the initiative? Yeah, initiative was Kikimora fleet. And so we were trying to save that avatar with our super fleet, which we used all those super carriers that you see on the battle report right now. So, and what happened right after that is someone undocked his Vendetta, and that thing got fleet warp too. So our objective from saving a Titan to saving a Titan and a faction super carrier. Yeah, it got like our recommend got really pissed after this.
Vendetta right now is worth about 180 billion on the market, but it's technically, to build it's twice that or more. So right now it's a very expensive ship to get destroyed. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So
you literally broke me. How do you not? I'm undocking my Titan. Hold on, I'm undocking my Titan.
I need some sunshine.
Fleet warp, engage. Control space that really freaking fast. Like, how do you undock a Titan and be away from it enough?
No, when you undock, you're about like 120% your normal speed in a capital ship. So your capital ship is probably have like 80 meters per second.
I mean, but you're not aligned into the right direction for a Thera hole, are you? Or is the hole actually aligned to the undock?
Yeah, it just
did we coincidentally have that alignment?
Yeah. So it didn't have to slow down to turn.
So it's close to instant. But still, how?
It happens. It's people don't expect it.
It just happens.
Yeah, it happens. So go on with the story. So Vendetta is now fleet warped. So now you're really in trouble.
Yeah. So we're trying to jump as many supers as we can. So there's a problem with jumping supers in your staging system, which is that on the battle we can see initiative brought a lot of interdictors, which means that they put on bubbles. So if you warp from the keep start to that Thera hole, you will get bubbled about 100 to 200 kilometer off the main fleet.
Oh wow.
So what
Man.
you have to do, like our high command theory craft did this a lot of times in his head. Like after the fight, we had a debrief. So what we had to do, so when you're on dock from Keepstar, you're aligned to a gate right in front of you. That's about 4,000 kilometer. So you have to jump into that system and then capital jump back to that signal right beside everyone else. So that's the only way you can get within the range of.
I see. So you jump
those.
through a gate that you're already directed at, and then you jump back into your own system where you need to be.
Yes.
Okay.
So instead of warping to there, you have to do this.
That's
So they quickly found that. Also, they put a couple interdictors there, so we couldn't do that anymore because they bubbled the gate. So we have to.
You bubble the gate, the Titan can't jump out.
No, we
Or
bubble the gate, so
whatever.
any extra supercarrier can jump through the gate.
Yeah.
Because that would be like 10 kilometer off, and with the supercarrier speed, that's gonna take like a month.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
So,
You bubble up the gate, they can't initiate jump back.
yeah. So, but you also see a Titan right on there. Another Titan, a second Titan. That one's not really fleet warped or anything. That one was by his own will. He didn't warp there by accident. So he was there for two things. One is to shoot down the signaling hip. The other thing is to use the phenomena. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think phenomena is used widely. So a phenomena is the special weapon or special thing on Titans. They can. It works like a command burst.
It's like a giant command burst that has big effects.
Yeah. So we use that to increase the armor HP on the Titan.
Doesn't it also affect the enemy as well?
Yeah, it does. But
this was a save mission.
It's more
not a kill
important,
mission.
right? There's risk and reward.
Yeah.
The
Well,
reward
this
is way over.
They wanted to save something. They didn't care about killing things. So, but
Yeah.
that guy's a hero. This guy Thrill, then, right?
Yeah. So we jumped in 3 apostles. Apostles, yes, thank you. Apostles and 1 Minokawa to try to save. So those things are
So
burned
4
out.
facts.
4 faxes, all killed.
All the faxes died?
I think we had.
Yeah, 3 out of 3.
I think it's all. I think we had 1
4 out of
or
4
something left on grid.
Well, there's a
all
Minokawa
They're
too.
hard to kill. They take quite a bit to kill, but I guess if you have a lot of new pressure, which I guess they would have, it wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, I mean, earlier on, you can see the timeline. The first 1 or 2 fax got killed. It was a self-repping fit. But later on, we used like a fax bomb, which is basically EHP based instead of repping based. So we knew that we couldn't hold the rep. So the best thing to do is last longer, so we can rep more on the Titan. So from there, we called in.
I've got a question. Can faxes remote other faxes that are in Siege?
Nope. So Siege, Faction, and Industrial Core, I think they're all. So when you're in that's kind of like weapon upgrade mode, you can be remote repped. You can't get any remote.
So just like when it dread sieges, they can't receive the remote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically there. It's dead. So we jumped in 2 Megathruns to basically roll that hole immediately, so they don't have any more reinforcements.
The Thera hole?
Yeah, the Thera hole. So another good lesson there, always check your local cosmic signature before you start ratting. Roll any hole, doesn't matter where it leads to, especially Thera holes.
Especially.
Yeah, so every time after finish anomaly, check on your probe scan. If there's a new signature, go back and scan that down for your own safety. See, this kind of
wormhole means dead. Just gonna say,
Yeah.
If you're ratting and there's a wormhole in the system, it means you're going to be dead. That's like that's a general awareness of your surroundings kind of thing, and protecting yourself while making ISK.
Yeah, so also interesting thing is that if you look at the kill report, there are actually some heavy interdictors, which were brought by Snapped Out. So we can really see the low set group and the null set group.
So you do need Hicks to hold on to super.
No, you don't. You don't
need it.
You just need to bubble.
You need a bubble. But
Yeah.
but to actually hold them, if you kill the bubbles off,
In low sec
gonna
it's
hold on to it.
different, but in null sec it's
Yeah, because in low sec you can't bubble, so you have to use a hick.
Yeah.
That's why they're so used to using hicks to hold down supers. But we can see in the kill report that Initiative brought a lot of interdictors. That's their meta to hold on a super. But
Yeah,
Snout
you throw
used
bubbles, they're not
hicks.
going anywhere. But
Yeah.
if you can't get the bubbles on the things, then you need hicks.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then after that, so the Legion fleet by themselves, they can't break the rep on the faxes to the Avatar. So every time the Kikimora fleet warped in, the bombers start to throw out bombs. The fighters just started to throw bombs. So, I mean, that's the only effective way that we can get those Kikimoras off the grid, which is throw bombs at them.
So you scared them off with bombers or
bombs on those fighters. So that's
the fighters,
another
the fighter
key
bombers
point.
from the super carriers that were there, all those Nixes basically.
Yeah, those high, or like we call them the high angle fighters, which they're basically heavy fighters, but they can apply really well against all those subcapitals.
The Ha fighters are the light fighters.
No, they're heavy fighters.
Or they're heavy fighters?
They're heavy fighters that can apply really well against subcapitals.
Dude, you and I are killing his story. We're like totally
I'm sorry, we're just sitting here asking questions.
Yeah, that's like
that's fine. Like
you tell your story, we'll come back to all that stuff. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, so the Legion fleet can't do anything. The only worry we have is when the Kikimora fleet revs up, it's this disintegrator. That's when it really gets scary. Those the high amount of DPS that they're gonna have on grid, that's crazy. So I mean, after that we killed a bunch, and then we called in Test for help. We basically called Papi, and Test brought a fleet of Meanings, and Evictus brought a fleet of Jackdaws. Good shout out to Evictus. They basically lost their entire doctrine, I think, of Jackdaws there by
they were heroes
against all those Kikis. Yeah, so after Test arrived, and so before Test arrived, like a few minutes, I think 10 minutes or something like that, before Test arrived, that Avatar was extracted off the grid, signaled off to one of our keepstars in range. Because you can't jump into the same system when you have the signal, right? So you have to jump to another system. And when the Test arrived, both fleets got off grid because they knew that they couldn't hold against another full-man Munion fleet.
So they left once Test arrived.
Yeah, basically. When Test was about to arrive, I think.
Now here's an interesting thing, and again, we reflect on yesterday's talk where we're listening to ProGod basically talk about this incident, and he said this was very interesting. That it just came to his head. He was talking about how Imperium doesn't have as many options as they normally would if they own Delve. They can't move, and so he was saying there was a fleet from Goonswarm that was headed to this fight. But they were intercepted by Papi, and they had no options because they couldn't use a Titan to bridge anywhere. Anywhere that was, safe, or any structure that they could go to. And or their Titans couldn't be safe while bridging anywhere. Therefore, they couldn't be used to move a fleet in a projected range, which means that because they don't have any more structures in Delve, which I think ended Sunday, that's when the last structure was destroyed, they are not able to participate in fights like this. And that's why, one of the reasons why, besides the heroes from Evictus and the hero Titan from Army of Mangoes, you guys saved the day, and Test coming kind of put an end to the potential danger, but also that strategic pitfall that Imperium is in right now of not having structures they can use Titans on. It's a big deal to be cornered into one constellation.
Also, if you look at Dauntless, the reason why we're pushing so hard against up north in Esoteria is if we didn't do that, then Farah and Bastion, they would have their Dread out in range to jump into Artag A, which means that we can be Dread bombed, which is more scary than another Goonswarm fleet. If they jump in 10 Dread, that Titan's there. It's not going anywhere after after that. So we pushed a lot. So anywhere above A1 tag AUH, when we arrived
Esoterra.
in Esoterra, those are like a little bit down south, like that intersection. A1 tag AUH.
Oh, A1. I thought you said HA.
A1
I have.
in the center.
If you hit Control F in your browser,
Yeah,
you can
that one,
type
that
it,
one,
and
that
you'll
one.
find it.
Yeah.
I knew seek and destroy. I
Yeah.
was about to go type it in. Hey, my
Yeah,
eyes
so-
are older now. These things are tiny on my screen.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
from there down, you can jump in Dread. I think you can project into a lot of systems from there.
Well, let's look at jump capitals, all systems, and we'll come back to this right here in Esoteria. And we can see the jump range by circled bubbles. Wow. So from that point, they have basically power projection or dreadnought projection into all those systems. That's almost the entire area.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we're pushing very hard against those people up in the north, so we don't get this kind of accident happen. Hopefully not again, but some other sort of accident, and another dread bomb fleet came in. We're done. That's
Yeah.
it.
Lessons learned, though, I bet. Good training. Good training op for you guys.
Yeah, like I had my super ready to undock, but the gate was bubbled, so I had to get on my out to be in a Muning to help.
All right. Now for the human
scary.
part. How emotional was it in comms? What was it like?
It was very calm, very very calm
All business.
until Tesla arrived, until all the super
And
carriers.
everybody wept.
Yeah, no, this is just yeah.
Wept with joy.
Yeah, it was very calm during the fight. Like it was super calm.
What was it like when you guys found out that not only did you have to save a Titan now, but a Vendetta was in danger?
So we had 10 pings in like less than 30 minutes. That was the most rate ping after M2. Like only M2 I've seen that kind of ping, but
So they were rage pinging for everybody.
yeah, they were rage ping all faxes, all super logins, and so we can see at the beginning was let's go save a Titan.
Yeah.
And then later on, a Titan and a Vendetta. So people were it's like, what the heck? Yeah.
So when you're in nullsec and there is you'll see a ping come out from an FC saying everybody get in fleet, a Titan tackled or something. And what's funny is in NC dot they'll be like red Titan or green Titan, because if it's a Titan kill, not that interested. If it's a Titan save, they're getting in. So it depends. So you always want to, it's funny they negotiate that. It's like, I'm in bed. I'm not getting out of bed to kill a Titan. I don't care. I've done it a million times, whatever. But if it's one of our guys in trouble, I'm getting in. That's like the highest alert level.
Exactly. Like that was also what our hack command said at the end. Like he said, like he looked at the pin. If someone called the Titan, he's not gonna get up at that like at 1 a.m. or something like that. But if it's like Titan called, he's up right away.
Yeah. That's all veteran players in these situations. But okay, fantastic story. I didn't realize it was so dramatic and the stakes going higher and higher. Your guys were all business until you could finally breathe again. And just the interesting strategic victories actually that have helped you guys clearing out Bastion from Dreadnought jump range, which would have made a huge difference in this. And also the inability for the Imperium to really help out besides the initiative, right? Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting story.
Yeah. It was quite emotional, I think, at the end, right after that.
You guys must have cried like joy. That's
people, like that, let's think about that. Like a lot of people couldn't get in bed after that. Like their heart was pumping so hard. It's like
too much adrenaline.
They were ready for bed. They were ready for bed like 10 minutes before this happened. It's like, nope, not going to bed today.
I love that high stakes playing. That's what EVE's all about. Those kind of moments. Well, good for you guys. Ended well for you, Army of Mango. Okay, Ash is back interviewing people, so we'll go ahead and raid him back with you guys. I want to say thanks to Caleb and Hateless and Shen for tonight's broadcast. Join us again, will you, tomorrow for more Talking in Stations. Did I just sound like Mr. Rogers there? I meant to.
A little bit, but it's a good thing.
Bye.